we saw him drop that touchdown pass that was floated to him, which should have been easy six. Easy six. Was it a little bit overthrown? Yeah, I guess, but did he get both hands on it? Yes. Yes, he did.
Gabe Davis would have caught it.
Yeah, Gabe Davis probably would have caught it.
You're now listening to the Wandering Buffalo podcast with your hosts, Andrew Chang and Justin Goddard.
Hello and welcome into another episode of the Wandering Buffalo podcast, a show here on the Built-in Buffalo Network. Justin, the Bills are in first place of the AFC East. They took down the New England Patriots. We're going to get into that game, break down the whole entire script for you here on the Wandering Buffalo podcast. But as always, you can find us on most social media and podcasting platforms, and even on YouTube by searching up our name, the Wandering Buffalo podcast. Justin, how are you feeling after this win?
I am feeling great about this win. We'll get into, my feelings on the game itself. But me personally, I've been out sick all week. For anybody listening at home that may not know, I did end up on the reserve COVID list. So I'm pretty much getting close to being out of the woods on that. But boy, did that game really kind of pick up my spirits when, I've just been chilling in a room locked up for like 4 or 5 days straight. So definitely a win I needed today.
Talk about a perfect remedy for the vid, right? Nothing does a victory better, right?
Yeah, chicken soup and Bills victories.
Yeah, that's the real game winner right there. Anyways, here's today's agenda. As always, we got 4 segments here. The first one, we're going to talk about ancillary weapons. Number 2, we're going to talk about Josh Allen and some missed opportunities, not necessarily on him, but just in offense in general, where we thought there could have been more opportunities to put points on the board. Number 3, we're going to talk about defense in general, and then number 4, we'll talk about coaching, and then we'll wrap it up with our player of the game. All right, so Justin, let's get into it. Ancillary weapons. We know the story going into this game. Cole Beasley, Gabe Davis, the 2 pivotal pieces of our offense. Maybe more Gabe Davis as of recently because he started coming on really hot, and Cole Beasley was starting to find his rhythm. They're out of this game because COVID-19 reasons, and I'm not going to lie. Going into this game, I was like, I'm a little nervous, but I don't know what it is. I feel good about it. And the Bills have a good depth, a good position depth at the wide receiver position, right? And we saw them show out today. McKenzie and Kumaro and Sanders, who was, week to week, but was able to play into this game. Now, there are some good and some bad out of those ancillary weapons. You saw McKenzie, right? He just blew up. What did he get? He led the team. 11 catches, 125 yards, 11.4 on average, 1 touchdown, a log of 28. He got targeted 12 times, didn't catch it once out of 12. Very good. Outside of that, we saw Kumaro get in there, and then Sanders get in there as well. Kumaro, he had that key, I think, 3rd down conversion early in the game, and I was really excited about him. If you guys have been listening to us, I've been crushing on Kumaro since the, preseason thing, but he's been kind of lost in the sauce, so he's a special teams guy mainly. And then we saw him drop that touchdown pass that was floated to him, which should have been easy six. Easy six. Was it a little bit overthrown? Yeah, I guess, but did he get both hands on it? Yes. Yes, he did.
Gabe Davis would have caught it.
Yeah, Gabe Davis probably would have caught it. And then number 3, we got our guy, Emmanuel Sanders. I was hyped to see him back. I picked him up off the waiver wires of my fantasy football league. I'm in the playoffs. I made the wise decision not to start him because he dropped an easy 6 points. So, in general, with these ancillary weapons, I thought that they did fairly well, and if McKenzie didn't have the game that he had, this would have been a super negative area. But the fact that McKenzie quite literally, exploded today was the reason why this was such a good performance by the Bills' ancillary weapons.
Yeah, I'll go a step further with it too, and kind of the shuffling around that we had to do on the offensive line. I'm going to count them in this category just for time's sake, because the shuffling of the deck, they were looking pretty good early. I know Bates went out with an injury, and we ended up getting Dawkins back in. I don't think they intended on Dawkins playing today and just giving him some more time to rest up, but all things considered, for how much we've struggled with our offensive line this year, for them to come in and handle that defensive line, I think that's worth noting. As far as like the receiving weapons go, I was somebody at the beginning of the year when Cole Beasley was doing, his whole Twitter rants about COVID and whatnot, and people were calling for, cut Beasley and we can just put McKenzie in there. And I was very much of the opinion that, that's not even close to a 1-for-1 swap. You're really going to struggle. And, granted, it's a 1-game sample size right now, but McKenzie looked great today, and he looked every bit the part. As far as the other receiving options here go, Kumaro had a little bit of a disappointing day, in my opinion, just mostly because of that drop. And then Emmanuel Sanders is kind of somebody that's lost me a little bit. He makes some great plays, but that drop in the end zone is just something that you can't have from him, being your number 2 receiver. And it's something that might pop up for me a couple times today. I've already said it once. I think Gabe Davis would have caught it, and that's another guy at the beginning of the year, we're talking, is Gabe Davis ready to be a number 2 receiver? And I was fully not on board with that. I very much that Gabe Davis was a benefactor of being the 4th receiver in the system and all that stuff. And I'm starting to feel like, going forward, that if Emmanuel Sanders does retire and move on, I think Gabe Davis might be able to fill that role. So all that to say, we're missing some key pieces on offense. It's, a do or die game, and you're relying on, a guy like Isaiah McKenzie who really hasn't been a focal point in the offense at all this year. And in a game where I was kind of just looking to get by in that department, they not only did that, they really excelled, and very proud of them, and very, very happy with how they put it all together today.
Yeah, and to kind of follow up on Sanders and Kumaro, I have the box score right here. So Sanders, 4 targets, only 2 catches. Good for 20 yards, but we all know that he dropped that touchdown pass, and people were saying, like, it was a little behind him, but for me personally, that hit him. He tried cradling the ball like this. Like, it was very catchable. I completely put that on Sanders. I mean, what else do you want from Allen right there, right? Like, yeah, he could have put it maybe a little bit more to the right, but very catchable ball, especially if you're a professional. And then Kumaro, yes, he did have that key 3rd down conversion that I mentioned earlier, but he also dropped that easy touchdown pass, again, that I mentioned earlier. And after that, you saw his target production go way down. In total, he only had 3 targets and only caught the ball once for 13 yards. But obviously, McKenzie went in, and I'm still not sure if they can swap 1-for-1 for those guys, but mainly because this was just one game, right? This is one game McKenzie popped off, and was he the key for the Bills? Was he a pivotal piece in reason why the Bills won this game? Absolutely. And before we move on to the next segment, I just want to talk about, the offensive line pieces that, that you addressed earlier. So before this game, Justin messaged our group chat and saying, like, hey, I don't think Deion's going to start. And I looked at that and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, Deion cleared protocol. He's good to go. And there's right off the rip, I see Spencer Brown, Ike Bacher, Morris, who was on the right guard?
Ryan Bates.
Is it Bates? Yeah, Bates. And then Darrell Williams. And I was like, oh my God, this is bad.
Well.
Like, yeah. Looks like we're going to test the depths here. And, you know, it worked out. It ended up being okay. And I'm happy that they were able to adjust on the fly. But unfortunately, you know, it comes at the cost of Bakker going down with what seems like a season-ending injury. So, not ideal, but, you know, it's just... The Bills got a W, but I just don't like the injury aspect of it. So, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, it was a shame to see him get hurt because I do feel like he was playing pretty well up until that point. And kind of as I mentioned before, for how much we've seen the Lions struggle this year, just seeing that starting five combination trotting out there for, you know, the most important game of the year.
So many combos.
So concerning to me. But they came out and they were playing pretty well without Deion Dawkins in there, and then, you know, an injury happens, and I kind of mentioned to you guys before the game, like, I think they just want to give Dawkins another little bit of rest if they can. He's probably just, you know, there in case somebody gets hurt, because we've really had to test our depth recently, and cuckoo that happens, and he came in, and they looked pretty good as a unit today.
Yeah, not bad at all. Before we move on, I do want to say shout out to Spencer Brown, because I thought he was going to have another rough day, but I think he held up pretty good. No penalties. I can't say much about the pressures or anything like that because I got to go back and watch the tape, but from a bird's eye view, solid job. So let's transition to the second segment here, and that's Josh Allen's performance and just overall, I guess maybe some missed opportunities. Am I right? So I'll just kick this off. Josh Allen, obviously a key cog into the machine that is the Buffalo Bills offense and why they were able to ultimately come away with a victory here. He completed 30 out of 47 passes. I'm not sure what percentage that is. Justin, can you tell me? 30 divided by 47. But in general, that was good for 314 yards, an average of 6.7 yards per pass. Very interesting, right? So it seemed like to me they were doing a lot of short passing plays, and you saw that early on with Singletary, an extension of the run game. So it was pretty good. But regardless, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, was sacked 0 times. So shout out to the O-line, but also Josh Allen did a good job of evading some pressures when it did come. And an overall rating of 104.4. Justin, what's that completion percentage? And moreover, how do you feel about Josh Allen's performance today?
So to answer your question, it's about a 64% completion percentage. Those. I'll take that. Yeah, he had a great day today, and you know, also adds on another 64 yards on the ground. Obviously, the big 25-yard run. And this again is kind of where we'll get into some of the meat that was left on the bone here. There's parts of this game where I was thinking back to, I think it was the Rams game last year when you had that audio clip of Josh Allen. How many times do we have to score?
That was against the Broncos, but yes.
There you go. But you had, you know, something we've seen a lot this year, the illegal man downfield, bringing back the Dawson Knox touchdown. We have the drops that we already talked about by Kumaro and Emmanuel Sanders. So I just think there's a few times where there was plays that were left out there that weren't really his fault. I will say one of the things that I was happiest with Josh Allen in this game is some of his decision making. Like you said, when he was under pressure, he didn't take any sacks this game. And there was
Cool, calm, collective.
Yeah, and there's a few different instances where, the play, the one I'm thinking of in particular was Dawson Knox and Sanders ran into each other, and he just kind of throws it away. And there's something so simple about that play, but it's something that I don't want to fail to mention with Josh Allen because of how many times that's become a problem, that he tries to extend the play and he just keeps dropping back 20 yards or throws an interception or, takes the sack that takes us out of a scoring range or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I do want to kind of pile on the praise there when the simple, smart play that he makes is throwing the ball 30 yards over everybody's head and out of the back of the end zone to see the next play.
Yeah, Allen definitely was the man today. He made smart decisions. I will say there was probably like 2 standout plays to me, right? And I'll start with the bad one first. And I think it was in the 3rd or 4th where the Bills were trying to run a lot of clock, and he threw a pass to McKenzie that was super behind him, and it just had no chance. And I was thinking to myself, like, Josh, man, we can't have that. We need something more than that in order for us to, keep the clock going, keep this drive going, and ultimately win this game. And I'm pretty sure, and this is the good part, this is my favorite play by Allen, was that 4th down conversion where he rolls out. I thought he was going to QB sneak. Everyone thought he was going to QB sneak, but some of the Patriots weren't fooled. But Allen was able to, slip the defenders, cut back, and up the field for, what was it, like 6-7 yards or something like that. Regardless, more than enough to pick up that first down, and I was with some family friends, and everyone just erupted because that play doesn't work if you don't have Josh Allen or someone of his caliber, right? So I think that Josh Allen did a great job. And to talk about those missed opportunities, again, I keep coming back to this, but Sanders, oh my God, you should have caught that ball. And I get it. I probably wouldn't have caught it. So I'm not saying it's the easiest catch in the world, but it's very catchable. And then when we were down in the red zone, we go from 1st and 10 from what, I don't know, within the 10 to 15 yard line. So we should have walked away with 6 probably. But next thing you know, after a couple penalties, it's 1st and 25. And we walk away with a field goal. Geez, man. Penalties, we ended up shooting ourselves in the foot. But luckily, it wasn't enough for the Bills to ultimately lose the game. And there were just some other opportunities where we kicked field goals where I was like, should have walked away with points. But that field goal, specifically in the 3rd, really just kind of was distasteful for me.
Yeah, I have a little bit more to touch on with the field goals that you're getting into there, but I'm gonna pile that more into my coaching part here. So,
okay,
yeah, I got some thoughts there.
Okay, perfect. Well, before we get into that, I know you got the calculator out, so why don't you divide 14 by 32 for me?
I'm known for my math skills,
Yeah, I know.
That would be about 44%.
That's Mac Jones' completion percentage, a rating of 31.4, and that's going to lead us right into our next segment, which is about the defense. But we'll get into that right after the break. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to wrap up this episode by talking about the defense and then coaching. And Justin, remind me one more time what that completion percentage was for Mac Jones.
I rounded up. It's now that I know where we were going with it, I want to give you the actual number. It was 40.
Oh, okay, right.
43.75.
43.75. We'll call it 43.8. 43.8% of the time that Mac Jones threw the football, it met its target. Mac Jones did not have a good game. they made Mac Jones look like a rookie, right? He threw 2 interceptions, threw for 145 yards, and had a quarterback rating of 31.4 yards on average. For the team, the Patriots caught the ball 14 times for 145 yards, and this speaks to it, right? Their average was 10.4 yards. So they were definitely catching it a little deep, but it ultimately wasn't enough. And on average, Mac Jones was trying to throw it only 4.5 yards per pass. That's not going to do it if you're trying to go against the NFL's number 1 scoring defense. It's just not going to happen. Now, Damian Harris, he definitely made that a game, right? He rushed the ball 18 times for 103 yards and 3 touchdowns. In total, the team 27, 100 for 149 yards, long of 31, 3 touchdowns, again from Damian Harris. And I'll just say this. I think that the Bills' rushing defense was significantly better this game than that Monday night game, but I wasn't necessarily like, oh yeah, we're good now. Like, the Bills still got caught over pursuing. Damian Harris still gouged them by cutting back. And to be fair, like, the Bills' D-line only sacked Jones once. And I understand the Patriots have a good offensive line, but this game script, which we'll get into the 4th segment here about coaching, was all about put the ball in Mac Jones' hand. There wasn't a lot of sack, wasn't a lot of, defensive line production. And this just sounds bad because I'm just like, 1, I'm hogging the mic, so sorry. And 2, like, I'm complaining about a Bills victory, but again, there's some meat left on the bones, and I know that the Bills could have done more on defense. So I don't know if you feel the same way about me, but how do you feel?
So I'm kind of glad you flushed out your whole point there, because I do feel a little bit differently than you. And not to any extent with the run game. I feel like we know who our defense is in that department, and we can go with the classic. Oh, well, Star Lotulelei wasn't in there. Well, I don't really expect Star Lotulelei to be in there anymore. Between injuries, COVID, we didn't have him last year. This week, he had something personal going on. It is what it is. But I've pretty much seen Harrison Phillips fill in that role, and I feel comfortable with Harrison Phillips going forward.
Yeah, he's a starter.
Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, I don't think our defense is ever going to be great at stopping the run. And I think we're actually seeing this kind of trend popping up in the NFL where these defenses for the past 5-10 years have just been evolving with this pass-happy NFL that we've seen. We've seen the Patriots doing it. We've seen the Colts doing it, where they win a game where Carson Wentz completes 5 passes or whatever the case is, and it just seems like kind of these defenses that have been built to stop the pass for so long are like, okay, well, now we're going to buck the trend and we're going to run it 40 times and see if you can stop that too. So I don't think that that's really an uncommon problem that you'd see with the Bills. I think that would happen with a lot of teams. But what I will say is, when it comes time to pass and the game script being, let's make Mac Jones beat us through the air. Yes, only 1 sack, but I do think our defensive line did generate some pressure. I'm thinking just, particularly really early in the game with Ed Oliver just busting up the middle. And kind of just, Mac Jones isn't a quarterback that's going to take a lot of sacks. He's the type to get rid of the ball really quickly. So I think the pressure being generated was kind of enough to make him have to go through his reads faster, and and that was where we saw the effect from the front four. Where I really want to, heap on some praise for this defense is, what did we land at? 43.75 completion percentage, 150 yards, something like that. And, let's not forget that this is a defense that doesn't have Trey White, and you have, Dane Jackson out there, Levi Wallace, and, for what it's worth, yeah, the defense and the scheme and all that, it's never been friendly to young and rookie quarterbacks, but they really did their thing on the back end to really play complement with the front seven there. So hats off to them.
Right. Yeah, and, I got to shout out Ed Oliver because I think he had a real good game. Four tackles, 3 solo. He had the 1 sack of the game. He had a tackle for loss, and let's see, 2 QB hits. 2 QB hits. I think QB hits are pretty effective. They're probably just as effective as sacks, in my opinion, for the fact that it gets into the quarterback's head mentally. And it's hard to draw parallels from that to, Mac Jones's passing percentage, but I do think that there was a fair amount of pressure in this game. I guess where I'm coming from is that I want more. It's there. It's there for the taking. The Bills are doing enough to get this W, but I want more, and I know that they can do it. So I guess I'm being a little stingy, especially here after Christmas. You got me a Bills victory, but I know it could have been better. Well, maybe next year I'll get a lump of coal, whatever.
To be fair on your point there, with the investments that have been made again across the defensive line, I've wanted more pretty much every game except for the first Miami game where we knocked Tua out and we were after Brissett all day.
And we were like, oh my God.
Pretty much every game outside of that, I was like, yeah, I could use more from the defensive line this year. I mean, you're talking 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, young guys.
One who's a healthy scratch from week to week.
Yeah, so I don't blame you there. I could always use more out of the defensive line.
Right. As far as cornerbacks, I thought they, again, did a solid job. Safeties, phenomenal job. Michael Hyatt had 2 picks, 1 on a deflection. Although, we should have had 3 picks. Levi Wallace, you should have had that 1 pick where, the Pats ended up getting a touchdown off that drive, but it was there for the taking.
If he caught that, he'd be a wide receiver, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Right over the shoulder. It looked like he ran the route. I saw that, and I was like, that's why he plays cornerback, I guess.
I looked, when I was watching the play, I saw Dane Jackson in front of him. I was like, oh, God, he beat Dane. And then I see Levi. I was like, oh, my God, he's going to pick it off. And he didn't. So, a couple plays later, Patriots score a touchdown. I guess that's where I'm coming from. I'm like, yeah, it was there. It was definitely there. It just didn't happen. I'll let you wrap up your thoughts here before we transition to the last segment.
That's about all I really had on the defense. Like I said, that I think Tremaine Edmonds, I think, is somebody that I could talk about every week, and he's so... The middle linebacker is going to be so involved in pretty much every play, right? But there's just some parts to his game where I see parts to his game where I'm like, okay, he's really going to turn the corner. He's going to take that leap, and he's going to be the best linebacker in football. And then there's just so many plays where he over pursues and he gets caught on a block and he can't shed the block. And I guess just kind of worth me bringing up now because I think he's somebody that we're going to be talking a lot about when we get to the off season and the contract that it looks like he might get and whatnot.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I love Tremaine.
I know you and I
liked what he did in this game. I loved what Milano did in this game. What Hunter Henry, did he even catch the ball in this game? He caught it one time. one time off of 6 targets for 9 yards. So I think that speaks more to Milano's aspect. But again, I still think that Tremaine very key to this defense, just like Milano. So that's where I kind of land with them. But let's transition to the last segment here, and that's coaching. So, Justin, I've hogged the mic way too much in this episode, so I'll let you kick this off. Why don't you tell me what your overall thoughts about coaching, and then tell me your player of the game.
Okay, so overall, I think this might be up there with one of my favorite McDermott games. There were some, you talked about the field goals earlier where it was like, did we have to kick the field goal? Should we have gone for it? My biggest complaint with McDermott since he's come to the Bills has been kind of like in these big moments against, it's often the Patriots, but call it Kansas City. One of these teams where we're really not supposed to win the game. And it seems like in those games in particular, he tended to get a little bit more conservative.
Skittish.
A little scared and, didn't want like the reason they lost to game to be like because of him, And I find when you're coaching not to lose that way, you're much more apt to lose than when you're going for the gusto. So this game, right off the bat, first drive, I think we drove it down like 59 yards and we got to a 4th and 2 and he goes for it and we punch it in. And for me, that kind of set the tone for the afternoon of like me feeling really good about this game. I thought we had to get out to a quick lead against New England. I think I texted you and Jake. I wanted the Bills to take the ball first today because I thought it was that important to get a quick lead. So getting that lead and, getting the ball in the second half was a double win, but I think it was really important to finish out that drive with 7 and not 3. And there's a few other times throughout the game. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit here. Where he made the call to go for it on 4th down. You talked about the Josh Allen bootleg with his dancing shoes on. It was beautiful. Leslie Frazier, I think he coached another pretty solid game. I haven't really had much complaints on the defensive side of the ball this year, other than really like the Colts game, and that was really more just like, hey, we're not very good at stopping the run, and this guy's the best to do it. So,
and we got our starting linebacker and our starting defensive tackle out.
Yeah,
not to say that's the reason why we lost, but it surely didn't help.
Yeah, outside of that, I've been pretty happy with Frazier. I did see a report today that the Jaguars are interested in talking to him for the head coaching job. So,
Jesus, no.
Yeah, Frazier's become a coach that I really don't want to lose, and I'd almost prefer to be replacing an offensive coordinator than Frazier at this point. I just feel like he's been so steady.
Right.
Which brings me into Dayball, who I think he coached a pretty damn good game today, and I don't know if it's like this injection of like speed and different weapons that haven't really been on the field, so maybe the defense didn't know how to quite game plan for it, or to me it feels like since the Tampa Bay game, like McDermott sat Dayball down and they had a conversation or something, because over the last 2.5 weeks, I've seen the creativity coming back from Dayball. I've seen the like run pass option with the little underhanded shovel pass to Dawson Knox, just the jet sweeps, all the little things that we saw so much last year that I haven't really seen this year. There's a couple possessions where we end up in the red zone and we didn't come away with points. But I'm also looking at we had at least 2 touchdowns coming back off the board that He drew up a play and they went out and executed it 98% of the way and should have been a touchdown. There's nothing he can do about that. So.
Right. Yeah. You kind of unloaded a lot there, so I'll try my best to match up with it. So right off the bat, yeah, McDermott, I loved it. He was aggressive. This was candid 2020 Sean McDermott coaching. Lay it out there and do it because you have the offense to do it. And he trusted them. And that's why the Bills were so successful, in my opinion, and why they were ultimately able to win this game. McDermott trusted his team. Not saying that he doesn't believe in them. It's just in those situations, and as you mentioned, he's kind of been let me just punt the ball and trust my defense. Well, why not trust the offense, right? And defensively, yes, I think they had a pretty good game. Now they let up how many points? 21. Pretty good for this team, considering they ran the ball a lot and it was productive for them. But and Damian Harris again scored 3 touchdowns, but nonetheless, they were able to shift the dynamics of this game into Mac Jones, make them one-dimensional. That's what the Bills wanted to do on defense. That's what they got. Mission accomplished. Brian Daboll, solid work again. Josh Allen, as I mentioned, key part of that Bills victory, and I'm just really, really happy that everything was clicking, and there's still meat left on this bone. We mentioned it. Offensive, defensively, there was plays to be made, and I know that the Bills know that. So I'd be surprised if they don't go back to the tape and check that out, right? Well, before we wrap up the episode, Justin, who's your player of the game?
So for a long time in this game, my player of the game was Singletary. I feel like not really so much as a running back. I think he only ended up with 40 yards rushing, but he was just kind of doing a little bit of everything. He's just tough as nails to get down at the goal line. And, I think it was adding to my opinion of Singletary every time Moss came into the game. I had to listen to the announcer say, Zach Moss checks into the game. He's the more physical of the 2 running backs. And I'm like, no. I understand that's what his calling card is. That's what your card you're reading off of says. But
it didn't feel like that today.
If you've watched any Bills football this year, Devin Singletary, he runs more physically than Zach Moss, and I'll die on that hill, but it's correct.
Right. Who you got?
It's got to be McKenzie, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Clutch catch after clutch catch. He just kind of did it all today, and what did he end up? 11 catches, 125, something like that?
11 catches, 12 targets, 125, 11.4 yards per average, 1 touchdown along with 28.
Yeah, I mean, that's
goated.
That's a banana stat line for one of your marquee, number 1 receivers. It's got to...
Yeah, the face of the franchise delivered for sure. He absolutely delivered. I don't really have anything else to talk about this game, unless you have anything you want to.
No, I mean it was
put out there.
It was overall just the Bills did what they had to do today to get it done, and now there's 2 teams in front of us that it's 2 teams that you should beat, and they just got to go out and handle business. And division's right in front of them; it's theirs for the taking.
Right, and I'm glad that you put that there because now, if I'm not mistaken, the Bills have, I'll read this word for word, Buffalo's odds to make the playoffs for the 3rd straight year, and, got a little something right here, ads, sorry about that. Buffalo's odds to make the playoffs for the 3rd straight year and 4th time in 5 seasons increased to 97%, according to the New York Times playoff machines. 97%, Bills Mafia. Go to bed thinking about that number. 97. Goated. And with that, that wraps up this episode. Thanks for joining in. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and review our podcast. Justin, where can the people find you?
You can find me on any social media at jgods22. As always, on the Built in Buffalo network.
Likewise. And you can find me on social media platforms by searching up Two Changs. Go Bills, 97%. I'm just excited. The Bills have everything in front of them. Everything. Go out there and get it.
That's it. Go Bills,
Go
baby.
Bills.